Are you ready? Okay. All right, let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Cheryl, will you take the roll, please?
Joe Burden.
Here.
Dennis Gagnon.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Laura O'Connell. Neil Toman. Heidi Wendell. Here. And Neil Zuckerman.
Here. All right, thank you, everyone. Welcome to the final meeting of the Planning Board for 2024. It's been quite a year for the country, the community, and we had to commemorate it with these hereby fancy hats with the Planning Board plus Glenn all have. And the color, as Dennis noted, is blue. It's correct. It was unintentional, but take whatever message you want for the color. But I will tell you that this Planning Board receives about $2,800 a year each for its service, plus a gift certificate that Bob provides to commemorate their service, and now a hat. So for those of you in the community who are interested in public service, I can promise you $2,800, a gift certificate, and a little accoutrement you can wear every so often. And for those of you who keep coming to site visits, you will now be able to identify those who are obliged to be there by their blue hats. So
please line up to your right.
All right. Relatively tight meeting tonight, a couple of public hearings and a couple of pieces of new business. Motion to approve the minutes from the November meeting, please.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Peter. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any comments, corrections, deletions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose. Motion passes. Cheryl, correspondence. Krasniqi, I think we don't need the reading, but there's been a request for an extension. Steve, is that an automatic extension, or does the board have to vote on that?
It's not even a request for an extension, really. What it is noting that under the state law, as far as site plans go, you're supposed, site plans go, you're supposed to render, the board is supposed to render a decision within 45 days. If for some reason you can't, it's appropriate to extend that timeline. If you do not extend the timeline, there's no penalty for it. The most that would happen is the applicant could bring a lawsuit for a court order compelling you to render an order. So it's a nicety, it's a procedural thing, but the board doesn't need to accept it. You can just note that, it's on a consent, and that's all.
All right, so there's no, just noting, there's no vote needed.
There's no vote needed.
Okay, fine, great, thank you. So there'll be a 45-day extension in Krasniqi. Second, do you want to read the Conservation Board memo, or should we just, it's relatively long. So, board members, have you read the note from the Conservation Board? Yes, yes? All right, great. Let's just note it as accepted, and we've seen the note. And I believe you said that the applicant has sent a response today, so if folks want to read that on its own, that's fine. Why don't we begin with the public hearing then for the Shakespeare Festival phase number 2, the lodging that we visited a couple of months ago. Why don't we initiate the hearing, please?
The Planning Board of the Town of Philipstown, New York will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 19th, 2024 at the Planning Board's regular monthly meeting starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, to consider the following application. Garrison Properties, LLC, Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, 2015, Route 9, Garrison, New York, 10524. Garrison Properties, LLC, and HVSF, the applicant, are seeking site plan approval for the construction of 32 units of the overall 44 units of artist housing proposed in their master plan that are to be located in the northwest portion of the site near Snake Hill Road. The artist housing involves 4 four-bedroom units and 16 one-bedroom units. The 4-bedroom units are proposed within 4 individual cottages, while the other 16 units will be contained within a separate large structure that will also include amenities and storage space. The artist housing proposed is in general conformance with the approved master plan. At the public hearing, the Planning Board will accept comments from the public regarding site plan approval for Phase 2 described above. At said hearing, all persons will have the right to be heard. There will be a 3-minute time limit on all speakers, dated at Philipstown, New York, this 21st day of November, 2024. Neil Zuckerman, Chair.
All right, great. Do you want to say some things, Adam, to start us off?
Sure. Thank you. Adam Steller from
Cy Paget and Rizzo on behalf of Hudson Valley Shakespeare. We have a full team here with us tonight from the project team, including the architect Susan Rodriguez and Beatty and Watson, the project engineers, and Jan Johannesson from KSCJ, who's the environmental consultant. So as Cheryl mentioned in the notice, this is a 32-unit artist and guest lodging that you see up on the screen. You don't have that screen open, but the public can see behind you that it's essentially 6 buildings. You've got 4 buildings that are each 4-bedroom units, and those are approximately 1,000 square foot footprint, 2 stories tall, with a 100 square foot porch. And there are another 16 units of lodging in the long building on the right side of the plan, and those are in a 2,500 square foot building, again, 2 stories tall with a 1,300 square foot porch, and then there's a 265 square foot outbuilding for trash and storage. This was designed so that there would be no departures, no significant departures, from the what was studied in the Phase 1 plan that the board approved last year. So, the project team was very careful to keep this within what had been previously studied, and it's on the same proposed location, which is on a former fairway. So the area that it's being built on was a previously disturbed area. I think only 1 tree is being taken out as part of this. No steep slopes disturbance. So the goal here was to minimize disturbance and to have it in the location that was studied before. There was a site visit by the planning board that members of the public attended, and we got some good comments from both the planning board and public that we responded to in the latest submission, including some questions from AKRF about what the potential impacts would be of if the artist and guest lodging was constructed at the same time period that the theater is constructed. So KSCJ provided some analysis in that respect, and we're looking forward to hearing from the public tonight.
Great. Cecilia, can we raise the volume of the speakers in the room? Okay, thank you. All right, anything else to add, applicant? No?
That's it. We would just, we would hope that, assuming that, we get some good comments tonight, that the public hearing could be closed, and we'll be seeking an approval resolution if that's appropriate.
Good. Steve, you want to add anything before we start the comments from the public?
No, this is an application for Phase 2 of the site plan, as opposed to the prior application, which was subdivision and carving off lots. This is focused on just the 1 lot, and you're here to have a public hearing on it. Once you have the comments from the public, you can, if you can satisfy everyone's opportunity to speak tonight, you can close it, and then the board can contemplate what it might like to do next.
Great. All right, I think people sign up for both Reserve and Shakespeare, so why don't you just read them off, and we'll see who's first for Shakespeare, and I'd like to ask, let's do 3 minutes, please, maximum. I'll keep the timer on it, and please keep it to the commentary related to the topic at hand, which is this new development, this housing for Phase 2. We don't need to recover issues covered in the previous phase that was already approved. So, please.
Joe Regoli?
Joe, are you here for Shakespeare? All right, come on up, buddy. This is your 15 minutes right here, or your 3 minutes.
Been a long haul, but and not revisiting the Phase 1, but my concern about the housing, quite simply, is that approximately 4 years ago, this whole process started. And the process started as a move up the hill by our friends from Boscobel, not Boscobel, from with the old site. Small, take the tent, bring it up the hill. 4 years later, we've got a $50 million project being built on the 11th fairway of the golf course. Had a $50 million project been presented 4 years ago, I think the reception would have been different. My concern here at this point is this housing. I don't really know how this housing is going to work, And one of the things I'm concerned about, if we now have a $50 million project, I don't understand, and I don't know whether this is the purview of the planning board or not, but the maintenance for this facility is going to be extraordinary for the theater, for the landscaping, for the housing. And there's no way the revenue of a summer theater is going to be able to handle that expenditure. So the question is, where's the money going to come from? And most probably where it's going to come from is extended use and also change of use, which the town board last year approved pretty much unlimited special permits for special events, which is probably going to turn into God knows what. But, you know, I don't know what the financial underpinning of this whole operation is, but it doesn't make any sense. And I would ask, as far as the housing goes, quite simply, if this is artist and resident, these seasonal homes for the actors here in the summertime. What happens in the wintertime? What's going on? How are they going to be maintained? And, you know, there's this economic impact of this thing. We've been told that well, this is going to be great for Philipstown. And in the previous communication to the board, I pointed out of the 20 consultants, the last time I did a survey, 18 of them were from outside of Philipstown. So there is no real economic gain to the community by this money that's being spent. And now that the construction's underway, there's no real gain there either, because the size of the project, the size of the companies doing the work, there's no one in Philipstown that can handle that work. So all of this work's being outsourced. So we've been sold this project on economic gain, which is not going to be real. We've been sold it on you know, the fact that this is just friends and neighbors. And I want to know, in terms of this housing, what's going to happen. What's going to happen with the housing? Is it going to get used year-round? If it's used year-round, how will it be used? How will we be certain that the Garrison School, which is losing about $150,000 in tax revenue, is not going to be subject to taking students out of this housing at some point, that there be some ironclad arrangement to make sure that doesn't happen? And finally, you know, and I close all of my comments to either the planning board or the town board, $50 million for this, we still don't have a working bathroom in the town park. We went through the fall athletic season in the town park, no working bathroom. And I personally think that's appalling.
Good news, the rec commissioner is sitting over there, so there you go.
Well,
Joe, government works. We got it.
All the fixtures are there, all the plumbing is done. We just have to hook everything up.
All right, Joe, thank you.
yeah, well, it's
Thank you.
awfully slow coming.
Thank you,
It
Joe.
took 10 years.
All right.
No, it's one.
All right. Thank you.
Bettina Oots?
Patina?
Hello. I'd like to speak in favor of the housing project. I think that a cultural project like this needs housing for the artists. It will attract artists. I think it's a sensible plan. I appreciate that very little site disturbance is happening, and yeah, I'm for it.
Right, okay. Thank you, Bettina.
So those are the only ones checked off. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak?
Anyone else for Shakespeare, please?
Hi, I'm Marilyn Young. I've been here all along watching, and it's quite a big project going on down there. But my main concern is water. You know, we gotta recognize we've been having some droughts, and how many bathrooms are in those artist housing? That was kind of brought up at the site hearing, but I think everybody, like 4 in each house and then 1 in each room. Anyway, I went down, did my homework, and this is the water mitigation page. And if you're further than, I'm half a mile away, even though I'm in the water recharge area, I have no grounds to complain. And then if there's, what does it say? Or a regional issue such as declining water levels during a prolonged drought condition, nobody can complain. So I've looked at all the PR, it's beautiful on the fences all along the construction area. There's a ton of planting they plan. They've been taking trees out for native meadows, and then they plan to put in a lot of plantings. But at the same time, they're lowering the pond where they used to get irrigation. So I'm just saying, I think water might be a problem coming up, and there's no recourse here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Please.
Thank you. My question is about the housing, and I was wondering if that's going to be part of the for-profit or not-for-profit operation.
I mean, this is for the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, and that's a not-for-profit.
So it's for the not-for-profit.
I mean, it's owned by the not,
Well, I think that
that's the application.
the rentals, like the Airbnb type rentals will be on the for-profit side.
What's it? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's profitable, so that's profit. So I mean, I'm sorry, just keep going, and we'll get to your.
So my point layering on top of what Joe was speaking about, it seems to me that we could create a better layer of protection locally if the not-for-profit ended up in a bad economic cycle. It would be better if that housing property was in the for-profit business model. And I just would like you to consider that as a suggestion. And the reason it would be better for us is that kind of economic impact that would, if the not-for-profit had a problem, which it happens, something would have to happen with the housing, but that's along with that property. So if we could actually keep it in the for-profit, they'd still have control of it, but you would have a different business model, and you'd be able to protect downside. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, motion to close the public hearing? Thank you, Peter, second. Thank you, Heidi. Okay, public hearing is closed. Questions from the board?
Did I hear a vote on that?
What's that?
I heard a motion and a second, I didn't hear a vote. Was it?
Oh, all in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you very much, Steve. Public hearing is closed. Board members' questions or comments? Heidi?
I have a comment about the possible wildlife effects of.
Can you get a mic, please?
Yeah. It wasn't discussed in the submissions, and maybe that's because it's not really an issue, but I was just wondering about the possible effects on wildlife of pushing this stage of the construction forward in the project. I know, I really appreciate that the Shakespeare Festival has been so, cognizant of wildlife effects. And I'm just wondering if thought has been given to the fact that this will push, some of those possible effects, especially on nocturnal wildlife, forward in the project. And I just wonder what provisions have been made for that. Like, I didn't see anything in the submissions about it. So I'm just wondering if if Jan, for example, has thought about, the effects on nocturnal wildlife in particular, but wildlife overall on the project.
Yeah, I'll let Jan jump in here if I miss anything. We did, in our initial submission, discuss the exterior lighting fixtures, which have been designed to be downward-facing lighting, and dark sky compliant, so that we're not impacting nocturnal wildlife. But the construction project is only going to be happening during the daytime. Whereas in the EIS we studied the whole thing, including the artist lodging, But also there specifically, we did a nocturnal wildlife study because of the hours of use of the theater, which happens after dark. So that was contained in the original EIS. But Jan, I don't know if you have anything you want to add about that.
I'll echo that the EIS included the artist housing as if it was constructed altogether. We did conduct the wildlife study, including nocturnal wildlife, and I'm reading from the findings statement that speaks to the study that we conducted, which included, I think at the board's request, wildlife photographs, having the trail cameras set up, which we did over the course of many months, and we captured the nocturnal wildlife. The wildlife that we did capture was very common species, none of which were of any real concern or protected or deemed to be species of concern that required any special mitigation. So the mitigation that was discussed was timing of tree removal, timing of noise restrictions, that sort of thing. That was encapsulated into the mitigation for the wildlife.
I'm just wondering if you could avoid the peeper season, like the early spring to late spring season when when amphibians are moving around on the moister parts of the property.
Yeah, true, but
because when we walked around the property, there's like a fairly moist section, right, like bordering where the housing would be built, and the peepers are really a very special quality of this area, and I'm just hoping that you guys can protect the peepers and the amphibians that are moving around on the site, which you've agreed to do on other parts of the site, like adjacent to the pond.
Right. I would just state that the entire Phase 2, the limits of disturbance are just over 3 acres, completely outside of any regulated wetland buffer. We're outside of, we're not adjacent to any wetlands. It's in an opened meadow. That was a former golf course, so I'm not sure that peepers would tend to be in this particular location.
But it drops down to a very moist area right adjacent to the site. Just if you can look at it, that's all.
Okay.
If it's not an issue, then fine.
Okay, understood.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, other board members' questions or comments? Peter?
Yeah, two from the public. During the site visit, we brought up both those questions about water, which I was concerned about, because it did seem to be a lot of great use of water. It seemed to be satisfactorily answered at the visit, and also the rental of the houses when the artists vacate did seem to be a profit arrangement. Could you clarify those two?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the water use was studied in the EIS. It is subject to the monitoring that HVS has agreed to with this agreed to radius, which was extended at the planning board's request to cover more homes. But there's no change in the projected water use from what was studied and in the EIS, and for which the board found that there would be no significant impact. On the rental units, I can confirm that will be part of the for-profit business that is within Hudson Valley Shakespeare. So the existing restaurant is a for-profit business, and the wedding venue that will be generating taxes and be treated as a taxable area of the property. And the artist lodging would also be included in that, because it will be, on occasion rented to guests who are not artists.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from board members? None? Okay. So Adam, I think just one more time, because you just sort of alluded to it, I want to come back to Joe Reguli's question, because I think transparency in a small community is important. Just please explain with your best understanding of your client's intentions, and maybe Davis can talk to this as well. What is the intention for this housing during the rest of the year when the artists are not there? What is the expected intended usage? And let's just be as transparent as we can, please.
Sure, and again, Davis, if I miss anything here. But the intention really is for the housing to be used for artists during the summer months when the theater is in active operation, and that in the shoulder seasons, that lodging will probably be used by wedding guests, the way that the existing lodging is used at the wedding venue. There's already rental rooms for weddings and other events. That's how this housing is really intended to be used on those shoulder seasons when it's still wedding season. And, you know, theoretically, it could be rented during the winter months. I can address the question about residency and whether this would generate school kids. There is a limitation passed by the town board regarding the use of these buildings that says that they cannot be residences, and there are time limits in there for how long individual guests can stay in the units.
All right. Hopefully, Joe, you feel like that satisfies your question. Any other comments from the board? Okay, Steve, next steps?
You're going to want to hear from Aaron in regard to his memo.
Okay, Aaron?
I think the applicant summarized pretty well what was submitted, and we really focused our comment memo this time around on that memo from KSCJ on the construction timeline. It answered a lot of our questions. We're in agreement that the seeker review remains valid that was done for the overall master plan with regard to construction noise in particular. It seems like overall this would extend the construction schedule by another possibly 6 months if it was happening concurrently with Phase 1 theater. Believe ending around, the spring or summer of 2026. That could be accelerated because these buildings are prefabricated, slab on grade construction. There's no new access proposed to get the construction vehicles in. The same plan for access from Route 9 is proposed. Construction vehicles have plenty of room to stage there. They're going to adhere to the construction hours that the EIS required as the mitigation. The distances haven't changed between these buildings and the nearest residences, and the analysis that was done for the EIS assumed the loudest equipment and gave you a number for what that could be at the closest residence. So I think it was like 70 decibels, assuming that loudest equipment was always used, which it won't be. It's one particular aspect of the construction, which could be the earth moving equipment. And again, this site is relatively ready for the buildings here. It's a former fairway. There's limited disturbance, 3 acres, I think, in total. They're using an existing septic field that's already there. They don't have to excavate for that. So my memo has a bunch of notes in it, but overall we're in agreement that revisiting the seeker for that issue is necessary. I think you have substantially conformed with the prior seeker findings here.
Okay. Steve, anything else to add before we move to?
Well, if Ron is satisfied with the drawings for the site plan for the Phase 2, and, the technical issues could be adjusted, as far as the resolution approving it, the next step would be for the board to direct that approval resolution with a finding of consistency with the prior secret findings, be prepared for consideration of at least conditional final at the next meeting.
And conditional final versus final is what?
Well, it's final approval. There really is no such thing as conditional final of a site plan as opposed to a subdivision. But what it is a final approval with a number of conditions that have to be met before the site plan can be signed.
So we're going to take a motion on a conditional approval resolution to be drafted by Ron.
Plans right? Is there technical?
We're in progress with the applicant's consultant to finalize plans, but they can be ready for the next meeting.
Okay. All right, well, I'll take a motion then to direct Ron to produce conditional resolution for this Phase 2 project for Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival. Can I have a motion, please? Heidi, first, second.
I'll say.
Thank you, Peter. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Ron, we'll see that at the January meeting.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So,
Can I
and,
just raise one
Oh.
thing that I had in my memo too that I didn't mention? This board made referrals, I think, back in October, to the health department, the conservation board, and the fire department on this site plan, and I don't have any record of seeing any comments from them. I guess, I don't know if you're, is there a time limit you provide them, or did they provide anything?
There, isn't it, is it 30 days, Ron? Yeah.
Okay, so if that's passed at this point, then, and you're comfortable with moving forward? I just wanted to point that out, that was, those referrals were made, but nothing came back.
I think we're okay. Selling past the close, Aaron? Okay. All right, moving on. Hudson Highlands Reserve. So I take it as a source of personal pride that I understand Robert's rules, as does Steve. However, I think we made a bit of an abrogation in the classic Robert's rules in our vote last month on having a public hearing for Hudson Highlands Reserve. So I'll let Steve give us the details, and this, I hope, will be a one-time only by this board. So Steve, would you please explain?
It's simply a matter of math, and we lost track of it at the last meeting, I'm afraid. It's a 7-member board. Majority of the board requires 4 votes. There are only 5 members present at the last meeting. The vote to schedule, I should say, the public hearing was 3 votes to 2, 3 in favor, 2 against. That may be favorable numerically, but it is not a majority of this board, and therefore not sufficient to schedule the public hearing. Nevertheless, the public hearing was scheduled, it was noticed. So the effect of this is though, and I don't mean to put it on you, Neil, but it's as though the chairman had unilaterally directed that the public hearing go forward. So the appropriate action to take at this time is to hold a vote of the board to ratify the decision to schedule the public hearing for tonight. So if the board would be good enough to make a motion to ratify the decision to schedule the public hearing for tonight, and a second, and a majority vote, we can go forward with the public hearing. If, however, the motion fails, then the public hearing cannot be held tonight, and unless and until a majority votes to hold it, it'll have to be put off or not held at all.
So I'm gonna ask my fellow board member before I ask for a motion in a second to vote at that. We don't need to rehash the discussion of whether it's good to have a public hearing or not. We had that discussion last time. So we need 4 of the 5 of us to vote for it, to have this hearing that some of our fellow residents have come out for. So we can decide, and Dennis is gonna help us vote, and we're gonna let him go home because he's not feeling that well. So can I have a motion to hold, or I guess to ratify the vote of last time to hold the public hearing for Hudson Highlands Reserve, please? Have a motion. Heidi, second.
Second.
Joe, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. We'll have the public hearing. Thank you all very much. You go. Yeah, you go. Okay, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. Okay, where's Glenn going? I guess we'll take this as a oh, all right. Let's let these folks who are leaving leave, and then we'll. Okay, sir, the floor is yours. Are you waiting for Glenn?
Wait for Glenn.
Okay, let's all smoke him if you got him. Yeah, sure, go ahead, read the notice, please. Thank you, Cheryl.
Planning Board of the Town of Philipstown, New York will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 19th, 2024.
Cheryl, could you start again?
Somebody
Oh,
can't hear.
there's somebody with the mic? All right, let's all definitely take a break. Just admire the hats we all have. You could spend your time doing that. Those weren't very good.
There we go.
They're another.
Got these encountered.
They're very medicinal.
51st.
You know what? The question is, would it be tax beneficial to us to make it a state? It would be better for us or worse?
I would think, I mean, the territory.
And they always say that's
He
why.
wants to buy Greenland.
That was last time. I think he got Greenland and Iceland confused.
I think he was actually just kidding.
It's not a good job to be a jokester in. Probably not.
There's always a first.
There is. There's a lot of firsts in this situation.
I don't.
Glenn, what's going on? Oh. Okay. Who gave us is this from you? It's so cute. What's this thing? It's Reese's. It's attached to something. Oh, I see. All right. Are we ready? No, we're still not ready.
Ready.
We are ready. Okay, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. My name is Judson Siebert. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Keenan Bean PC. I represent Horton Road LLC, the applicant, and I'm joined this evening by Glenn Watson of Beatty & Watson. Thank you for your ratification motion. This is a public hearing that the board has decided to hold, an optional public hearing on our application for final plat approval. Just in terms of setting this public hearing in proper context, this application has been before the board, obviously, for a very long time. It was the subject of a thorough SEQRA review, which included the preparation of a DEIS, FEIS, a SEQRA finding statement, and that led critically to this board's adoption of a preliminary subdivision plat approval. And as Mr. Gobbin noted at the November meeting in discussing the scheduling of this public hearing and whether it was required or not, the word preliminary could be somewhat misleading. The preliminary approval is a consequential step in this process. The preliminary approval, once adopted, once granted, essentially forecloses this board from making significant changes to, or certainly rejecting or dismissing, the final plat, provided it aligns and is consistent with what was approved at the preliminary stage. And that's what we've done. We've fine-tuned the plan in accordance with the preliminary approval. We're pursuing all of the conditions that are attached to that preliminary approval, some of which we've achieved. And I just offer that because while this is a public hearing, we've had multiple public hearings on this, and I would just ask the board to be mindful that it should focus on new information. We're not here to relitigate the merits of the past approval and the secret process. That's it.
Cheryl, we didn't finish your reading of the document, so I want to revisit that, please.
Planning Board of the Town of Philipstown, New York will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 19th, 2024, at the Planning Board's regular monthly meeting starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, to consider the following application: Hudson Highlands Reserve, Route 9 and Horton Road, Cold Spring, New York, 10516. Project Conservation Subdivision on 210 acres, 24 residential lots, each approximately 1 acre, served by individual wells and community wastewater treatment facilities. SEQRA review has been completed and preliminary subdivision approval has been granted. At the public hearing, the Planning Board will accept comments from the public regarding final subdivision approval only, particularly in regard to the applicant's satisfaction of all conditions of the preliminary approval and any additional conditions which may be placed on final subdivision approval. At said hearing, all persons will have the right to be heard. There will be a 3-minute time limit on all speakers. Dated at Philipstown, New York, this 21st day of November, 2024. Neil Zuckerman, Chair.
Okay, great. Let's do the same 3-minute time limit. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. There is one other thing I'd like to add.
Please.
At the last meeting, an issue arose as to whether the conservation easement would be subject of discussion in regard to the final approval. And I opined at that time that since the conservation easement was being given to the town board, that it was the purview of the town board to approve the conservation easement. The town code provides that if the conservation easement was being given to a third party or a not-for-profit, then the planning board would approve the conservation easement. And that is in fact what the code says. But if you read down a little bit further, there is a line which says that the planning board shall review and approve the conservation easement regardless of whether, it doesn't say regardless, but I mean that's the import of the language. The conservation easement is being given to the town board or is being given to a third party. So review and comment on the conservation easement, and I provided a memo to the board on this, along with a copy of the conservation easement, is fair game. And if members of the public would like to comment on the conservation easement, they're absolutely free to do so. It's an appropriate item to consider as one of the conditions that must be met in order to obtain final approval.
So let's just talk about that for a second. So in that case, does this board then have to vote on the conservation easement's acceptance by the town, or is that just a?
Clearly, a vote would be preferable. It is not technically required. If you just say that you find it acceptable, if there's no objection, if we send a letter to the board saying that, much like you would do a review and report. But if there's dissent among the board and some find it acceptable and others find that other things should be put in, and you disagree, then clearly you should have a vote.
All right, well, if you don't mind, colleagues, since we've already opened the public hearing, let's come to that issue after we close the public hearing. Is that okay?
Although I think we should ask the public if people were not prepared to talk, because we had discussion about this at the last planning board meeting, and it was clearly said that we wouldn't be able, we could only talk about the HOA and not the conservation easement. So I just am wondering whether the public is prepared today to talk about the conservation easement. So, I mean, it seems to me that that's an
If the board wishes to
issue.
hold the public hearing open, that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do.
Why don't we come to that when we run through the comments, okay? And, all
I
right,
have comments personally, but
do you want to step around and make comments, or do you want to do it from up here?
no, I can do it from up here, but I don't want to precede the public.
Yeah,
Of
let's
course.
have the public go through, and then
Yeah,
we'll,
of course, of
okay. All right, Cheryl?
Bettina Utz?
Hello again. Bettina Utz, East Mountain Road North. I'm not really prepared to speak about the conservation easement today. Would be great if the hearing could be left open. I do remember that there was one point about the finances where another member of the public suggested a endowment as opposed to an annual payment. So I think it would be worth letting the public prepare and talk about that as well at a later time. As for today, as the applicant is seeking final approval, I think we should take our time with this. It seems like a lot of items are still open that should be clarified before the approval is granted. And I'm looking here just at a few here on this document here. The DOT approval of highway work permit for Route 9 access, for example, not ready yet. The Department of Health approval of the well and sewage disposal systems should also be included as a condition of the final approval. And then there was one item I saw, the floodplain development permit, that goes hand in hand, as I understand, with the DOT approval, should of course also be clarified. And there are other items that maybe others will talk about, but these I saw right away as being very important. And thank you so much for being diligent.
Thank you, Bettina.
Richard Butensky?
Okay, I just have three questions. One is about, and some of it's, not saying that my own ignorance here, but there's an item in the, I believe it's in their covenants and restrictions, and it's a subcategory S, and it says, the conservation easement required by the town of Philipstown, recorded or to be recorded in Putnam County Clerk's office, which restricts, protects, and preserves approximately 167 of the common area, 167 of the common areas in perpetuity. Well, I think it means 167 acres, which also I'm not clear as to, the acreage seems to change in a couple of different places, so I think it'd be good to know what is the acreage. It should be clear, and it also should say acres here. And it also, and then it says, as same may be amended from time to time. And I'm just not clear what that means. common areas in perpetuity, as same may be amended from time to time. So I just,
Could you just share what your notations on that, if you wouldn't mind, when you're done?
sure. Oh, you mean afterwards?
Yeah, when you're done speaking.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not taking away your speaker's notes.
No, no problem. So there's that. My other question is, I was reading through the HOA rules, and I think, there's a lot there. And some of it seems all reasonable and very good. I'm wondering what are the penalties for it seems that, it's up to the HOA to enforce a lot of these rules, and I know the town is overseeing it, but I'm wondering, it's still up to the HOA if some homeowner decides to cut down a bunch of trees, what are the consequences of that? I don't quite understand. I'd like that to be clear. It's no good having all these great rules if they can't be enforced in any way that matters. And then lastly, I guess there was the enforcement. Well, I don't want to waste time, but if I think of it, I'll come back. I had one other issue.
All right, great, thank you, Richard.
Alice Krakauer?
Okay, so I don't know why some conditions for final approval of the subdivision need to be met before a resolution for final approval is made, while other conditions are put in the resolution. When I read the AKRF memo, I didn't understand why some were put in one bucket and some were put in the other, and what the practical consequences of that are, whether some are more important or not. But in any case, you can address that after. My particular focus is something that was put in the bucket of conditions that are put in the resolution that have to be met, but they're in the resolution. And that's the Board of Health approval. And like someone else mentioned about Shakespeare, I'm concerned about the current conditions of drought, the current environmental moment. We know that wells are the source of water to the sprinkler system, which is a major line of defense if there's a fire. Fire's an increasing problem in this area because there are these more frequent droughts now because of climate change. And I read the articles in the Highlands Current. There were 2 in November, that explain that there's more evaporation because of the warmer weather. There's more evaporation of water from the soil and the plants, and the atmosphere can hold it longer, so it doesn't need to rain as often. So that's why we have these droughts. And then when it does rain, sometimes it rains so much that the water just washes off without being soaked into the water table. So I'm concerned that there are 25 wells in this small area. It's not just droughts that deplete the water table, it's also use of the wells that depletes the water table. And so we have these 25 wells in a relatively small area. So that concerns me, so it's really fire that I'm worried about, right? Because a fire could not just take out this development, but it could really take out the whole mountain, on which many of us live. And, there's this increasing risk of fire, and the fire season used to be much shorter than it is now. It used to be from April to October, but apparently now there are fires as early as like February and March, and as late as November and December. So that just leaves, maybe not January yet. So that's the thing. I mean, because of the droughts, people in Philipstown who have wells are being advised to conserve water, and wells in Philipstown have to be dug deeper than they used to be. So, you know, I'm worried about the water table and how it affects the sprinkler system, how it affects the ability to fight fire. Okay, thanks for listening.
Madeline McGinley?
So I'm commenting on the AKRF memo dated December 13th, and there are several, again, there seem to be several open items that were conditions for approval that have not been met. So I feel it's very premature to be voting now. Too many outstanding items and boxes to check. So the first is the DOT approval. This was a condition of the final approval. How you get into a development seems to be a very key component. And I recall when Kim Connor was on the board, that the board even said that if there was no Route 9 entry, there would be no project. The second is the Board of Health approval. There's, the individual wells, but then there's going to be this massive septic field, because each lot is too small to house its own septic field. I don't think there's anything else like that in our town. And has the Board of Health given any feedback on this very complicated, large system? In terms of the HOA documents on page 22, they address the short-term rentals for a duration of blank days or less is prohibited. And it's blank. They don't give a limit on the short-term rental period. So when will that be stipulated is my question. What is the number of days for the rentals? Will these houses allow the short-term rentals? You know, Philipstown has no rules regulating short-term rentals. So how will Philipstown deal with the short-term rental aspect? So I think it would be very risky for the board and quite frankly, highly irresponsible to vote right now until these key conditions are met. Otherwise, why make the conditions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Madeline.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak?
Please.
Hi, I just want to echo what everyone's been saying. Oh, John Clark. I just want to echo what everyone else has been saying about there being so many outstanding items. I can't believe that are you really intending to vote possibly on final approval tonight? I mean, is that really an option? Because there's just way too many things that have not been resolved. And I'd also like to say generally that I don't feel stampeded into approving this project. I mean, I know that there's a certain momentum to it, but, and I know that you have said that the preliminary approval is sort of locks everything in place, but everything should be signed off on. Don't, every single thing should be dealt with here, and don't let the momentum of this project push you into voting for something that's not been completely resolved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, so Heidi brought up a point, then it's a thoughtful one about the lack of the discussion or the identification of the conservation easement being a topic that this board did not know was within its purview to vote on, and that therefore the public having an opportunity, I guess, to comment on the town holding the conservation easement. I personally don't know what one would comment about it, because that's
Well, I have comments.
Oh, you want me to speak? I'm just trying to address the question about whether we close the public hearing.
Understood.
So you making comments you can make after, whether we close or not. So let me just solve
I
this.
just wanted to address what you're.
So let me just finish what I'm saying,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is,
sorry.
I personally don't know what the comments would be, but I'm also, as you know, very focused on transparency and public input. So at this point, we typically would vote to close the public hearing. I'll take a motion if someone wants to discuss that, but I'm also perfectly fine to vote with the group that says let's keep it open, given that the public did not get the comment on the conservation easement being the purview of this board. So is there a motion?
keep it open.
Well, I'm asking you to move to close it. We don't need to, I don't think we need to move to keep it open. Can you let me finish, sir? Yeah. Thank you. So, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, we'll keep it open then at this point. All right. And we'll keep it open till next month. Does that need to be re-noticed, Steve?
No, since you noticed it and you announced the date that it'll be held on, you do not need to renotice.
Okay, do we need to specify that the comments we'd be soliciting would be solely around the conservation easement, or is that not allowed?
Solely around the conservation easement, that you hold it open, it's open for everything.
Fine. Okay, fine. So we're gonna keep it open. If you wanna comment now, that's cool, and we'll go from there.
Actually, my comments are on the conservation easement and the HOA materials, because I wanted to compliment the applicant on a particular aspect of the materials, but that's not carried through all the documents, which is the prohibition so this is in the document called General Rules and Regulations of Hudson Highlands Reserve Homeowners Association, which on page 1 has a restriction stating all dogs, cats, and other pets must be leashed and shall not be permitted to run loose on the common areas. And I think that's really great. That's a great restriction, which I would just suggest it would be really great if that could be carried through to all the documents, including I didn't see it in the bylaws for the homeowners association, and I didn't see it in the conservation easement either. And I think that's really important. I live right on the woods, actually, of the Hudson Highlands, and especially, it's very important for people to, especially restrain dogs during like the amphibian season. And I was very happy to see this provision in your materials. Do you know what I'm talking about? This particular?
I've got it right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't see it followed through in the other materials. Or the conservation easement.
Yeah, we'll look at that. I will tell you that there may be certain documents that it is not necessarily applicable to, like the bylaws. In other words, I'll look at the conservation easement, the rules and regulations, possibly the declaration, to put it in where it has teeth.
Okay,
as long as
exactly. And one thing I was thinking of, just because living on the woods, I talk to a lot of the dog owners, and people do really love to let their dogs run free at times. And they are usually very appreciative to know that during the peeper season, don't keep your dog on the leash all the time. But I would suggest that if there's any possibility that in the common areas of the development, you could create a dog run. That would be really, really helpful. I think it would be great if there's some part of the common areas where there could be a dog run, which would actually make it possible to keep people from running their dogs loose on the conservation easement portion. And especially around the pond where, dogs can trample amphibians. So just a suggestion. Okay. I looked in the findings and I couldn't really find anything specifically, but we did talk about this a lot during the hearings. And if it's possible to create a dog run on the common area somewhere, that would be great. And also to include in all the homeowners provisions, something saying do not let your cats roam free. You have to keep them in the house. You can't let them roam free around the property, especially on the conservation easement, but anywhere on the property. Because it's really important for wildlife not to have domestic pets roaming free. But at the same time, you have to be practical because people like to have their dogs get to run. So if you can create a dog run, that would be really, really great. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for hearing me out on that. Yeah.
Is that it, Heidi?
Yeah.
Okay. Other board members' comments or questions, whether on something independent or on the specific? Yes, Peter, please.
I just had one question. That we heard that the town board had accepted the terms of the conservation easement a week ago. I would like to know, well, first of all, I haven't seen the document, so it kind of leaves me in the dark. But what are the specific obligations of the town board, and how are they going to go about enforcing the conservation easement restrictions, openings, whatever it may be?
Steve, as you play lots of roles in the community, what could you provide some high-level comments to Peter's question?
Well, the town board accepted the conservation easement subject to approval by the planning board. So if the planning board wants changes, the changes go in. Unless, of course, they're contrary to what the town board wants, in which case the town board is going to have the final say on the matter, because they have to accept it at the end of the day. There'll be a resolution accepting the,
Sounds very circular.
It is.
But I was asking less about the procedure, more about, do we have the outline of the terms of enforcement for the easement?
The terms of enforcement for the easement are in the easement.
That's what Peter's asking about, I guess, is what I'm asking.
I've provided a memo and a copy of the conservation easement to the board. I'll be happy to send it again. If you want me to highlight that section, I have no problem with it.
So I just need to see the
Why don't you-
document.
Well, as Steve said, it's been shared, so why don't you take a look over the next, we all should take a look over the next period. Okay, other comments? None? Joe? I'm sorry, your name again, sir?
Judson Siebert. Judd Siebert.
Judd.
Yeah.
So can we just address some of the public's comments, because I think they're worthy of acknowledgement now or after the hearing closes next month. So first of all, to Richard's point about acreage and something may be amended, could you address those 2 points? Well, you can show it to Judd, that'll be more expedient.
Actually, Jed and I have discussed that section already. I've provided a memo which flags a number of things that have to be revised, and that's one of them. You're spot on.
Both the points he raised? Because I heard Richard
Certainly the
raise-
one regarding amendments. I don't
Why don't you
remember what the
just show it?
second point was.
Why don't you just show it to Steve, since he knows that?
Well, he already knows it.
Which section is it? I'm sorry.
S, right there.
Conservation easement required by town, recorded, restricts, approximately. Oh, you're talking about the numbers being consistent. Well, we'll check on that. The amendment can't stay in there. They have to change that language. No, it's got to be consistent with the conservation easement if there are going to be any changes. Yeah, no, that will be changed. You're right to point it out, though.
Richard, thank you for your close reading of that. It's great.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like any draft, things evolve over time. So the numbers, we'll confirm those. And the amendment piece, Steve and I have talked about.
Okay, I think my point is to reiterate the point of a couple of members of the public, which is we're on final, so getting final is good. And I'm glad we have lots of eyes on it. I think a question also raised, I think I'd like to get some addressing from you is, and I think Richard also raised this, I like the question of what are the consequences of violations? George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and nothing happened to him, he eventually became the President of the United States. So what's the consequences, for example, of trees being
My
cut?
answer to that is, this is all of the material. Can I flip to it and point to it immediately? I will, if
Fine.
we're continuing
Come
the
back
public
to this,
hearing.
fine. Totally fine with
And
that.
if there's an issue in that regard, I'll talk to
I'm
Steve.
not trying to do gotcha here.
No,
It's
no,
fine, we
but I can,
can talk about it.
but I'm saying, if there is an issue in that regard, in terms of there not being something clear, I can talk to Steve and we can work through that.
Neil, if I could give you a thumbnail sketch on that,
Please.
I agree with Judd not to go through it point by point. But it breaks down in 2 levels. There are things that are prohibited in the conservation easement, and there are provisions in the bylaws and regulations which are designed to prevent those actions from being taken that would violate the conservation easement. There's some overlap, but some of them are different as far as the language goes. So if there is a violation of either the bylaws or they're designed to prevent violations of the conservation easement, the first line of enforcement is the homeowners association. The homeowners association has to go out and they have the right to fine people if they have to bring lawsuits. They can seek their attorney's fees in regard to them, and they can seek remedial action. They could wind up in litigation over it. The second line of enforcement is the conservation easement held by the town. So if the town, and there are going to be regular inspections of this property to make sure that there's adherence to the provisions of the conservation easement, for which the applicant is going to pay the town. If the town finds out that there is a violation, if it's not something that's an emergency, they give notice to the homeowners association. Either homeowners association takes care of it, and if they don't, the town board can start a lawsuit, in which, again, they can get penalties, they can get injunctive relief to require remedial action to be taken, and again, they'd get their attorney's fees in the event that they prevail. One of the, I sent a memo to the board on this, I shared it with the applicant. There are a number of things, I think I cited 10 things, that I think would be appropriate to change in the homeowners association bylaws and regulations. And one of them pertained to, I think it was mentioned this evening, the removal of trees on individual lots. And I'm just using this as an example, all right? Right now, it says you can't remove trees except with the approval of the homeowners association. Well and good. The problem with that is if you remove mature trees, it is awfully difficult, whether there are monetary penalties involved or injunctive relief or what have you, to replace them. The damage is done, the damage is done. And so I've asked the applicant, as one of the changes that needs to be made in order for the homeowners association bylaws and regulations to be appropriate, to provide a more detailed and specific provision as to exactly how they're going to prevent individual homeowners from cutting down trees, presumably on their own properties, but I guess it could even be in the common areas. I don't know exactly what terms they're going to put in, but it can't be as loose as it is now. It has to be much more specific, and it has to have sharper teeth as far as that goes. And I'm sure we'll work on it and find something that's acceptable. But those are the type of things that need to be beefed up, and that's thumbnail sketch how enforcement works.
Okay, two more topics. Oh, go ahead.
Can I just mention something?
Please.
I mean, if you read the conservation easement, it reads as though ultimately the town could sell the land, could allow the land to be developed. I mean, I just think it's important for the public. Am I right? I mean, it seems like it's not necessarily forever.
Well, hold on. Steve's shaking his head.
It's
So
simply
let's,
not the case. What it does say is in the event that the town, if the land is dedicated to New York State as parkland, the conservation easement goes away, but the town can't abrogate the conservation easement provisions that are essential to its purposes. They could amend it, but they can't go beyond what it's there to require.
All right, well, let me read it more carefully and at the next session, but I think it says that it's not necessarily forever.
Well, that's
Setting aside the possibility of eminent domain.
Well,
I mean, I think it doesn't say that it would necessarily have to remain as wild land forever, if the town doesn't agree that that's the best use or something like that. So.
Why don't we look at the specific provisions and we can
why
have a
why
discussion?
don't we have a
Yeah.
more fulsome conversation, because you're both are talking without it being in front of you, and I think with speculation is probably not terribly helpful right now. Two more questions also raised by the public. So where are we with DOT and where are we with Board of Health?
Hi, Margaret McManus with Beatty and Watson. The DOH has a two-step process because it has a common septic area. So it also included a well test. So there was well testing done a few months ago, which followed the criteria required by the health department. There were 4 wells on site that were all pumped for a duration of time. And there's a curve to see how quickly they recover. All the wells recovered very quickly. The health department has accepted the well testing. It has also given its conceptual approval of the common septic system, and we have applied to New York State DEC for a speedies permit because the septic system is more than 1,000 gallons a day. It's been there for a few months, but it's the DEC, so that takes a little time. Once they issue the speedies permit, it goes back to the health department, and with the speedies permit, they will issue the final approval. But they cannot issue their approval without the DEC speedies permit.
So just, Steve, to confirm for this board and the public, if we move to final approval, does it have to be, is it still conditional on other bodies, or do we have to wait for final approval until the other bodies provide their permission?
Depends on the nature of the approval that you're seeking. There are some bodies, I think the DOT is one, that won't grant you your approval until after you've had final subject to
So
conditions.
we have to come first before state DOT.
In some instances, yes, DOT for sure, but there are some others as well.
So
And you'll-
let's go to the second one on state DOT, because Madeline brought that up. So could you give us an update?
Yep, so plans have been submitted to the DOT, and we have a conceptual approval letter from them. So they are pursuing their review, and we cannot, we can never pull it until after final approval. And we also need a contractor and insurance certificates, and there's a whole process in order to actually pull the permit.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, and we've talked about this a lot, so final approval from DOT can only come after we go first, so.
Yes, but you will see the conceptual approval. This is what DOT intends on approving.
Yeah.
Once they have subdivision approval, then DOT, or so they say, are going to grant that
Yes.
in that form.
Okay. All right. Other board members' questions?
I just have one quick question. Those wells you're talking about, were they newly drilled wells, or were they wells already that were on the site?
There are two houses that are already there. One was, Fresenda? Old house that is on East Mountain Road North. One is the White House that is on the property, the Olmar House. The other one is the commercial building that's right next to where the entrance will come in. There's a commercial building there. And the fourth is a well that was drilled for a house that was going to be built but was never built. So there were 4 wells on site.
All existing?
They're all existing, and they're scattered throughout the site.
I have a question on that fourth well that you mentioned for the proposed house. Is that the one that's up on the hill right off of East Mountain Road North? At that high,
the house?
Lions house that was originally?
It was gonna, I think the Lions
Driveway
House,
was not-
it's off of
basically
Horton Road, more towards
Off of
Horton
Horton
Road, yeah. I mean, it might have come, no, there was an entrance up off of East Mountain Road South, so
Which has
that's,
been closed off since.
it's been closed off, yeah.
But is that where that fourth well is?
I believe that's where the fourth
Okay.
well.
Because that's pretty,
No,
This-
there's another one, there was another one where
So there's
Nate
5?
Lyons, yeah, because that one, I don't know if that was ever drilled, but the
Oh,
one
I-
that,
I don't
yeah,
know
so the one we utilized was more by the White House, but farther back into the woods.
thank you.
Okay. Other board members' further questions?
I was just gonna
Joe?
ask a question. Yeah, just had a question about the Speedies permit, the state pollution discharge elimination. Is that to do with you're gonna discharge the sewage to the groundwater, or what? I'm just trying to figure out why you need a discharge permit.
All septic systems discharge underground to basically groundwater. You either discharge to groundwater or to surface water. Surface water would be a stream. So you need a Speedies permit, which means you have to go to the state level if your septic system is more than 1,000 gallons a day. Some houses are more than 1,000 gallons a day, and they also have to go to New York State for a DEC permit.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any other questions? All right, so since the public hearing's been kept open, we will see members of the public here again if you want. And otherwise, that's the end of this part of the discussion this evening. January. 16th, that's Thursday? That sounds right.
The third one's out there.
Yes, it's the third
Third
Thursday.
Thursday.
16th, okay, great. All right, thank you very much. Next, new business, Philipstown Depot Backstage. Here, you can go. What?
He wants to get his train.
You want me to flip these?
You know, you can.
I don't know who else, sure, if you want, all right, we'll do. Okay, we'll do the Rosemary Corbett next. Sorry, all right. Well, you have some power, don't you?
Yeah, really.
You got a hat. You've got authority. Now where are you going? Oh, he's the AV guy too. All right. All right, Rosemary Corbett, trustee.
So I go, yes, for a jerk. I don't want anyone to get into trouble.
Maybe part of that one. That was funny. All right, it's good. Take care of that.
Yeah, it comes and goes.
Do they know where it is?
Yeah, it says it. But I
Those are all.
paralyzed letter for him, so it doesn't help with step to it.
Oh.
It's not much to do with the septic truck. Be careful what I eat, when I eat, what I drink.
Okay.
Try to do moderation. You want me to-
No, I'm good, thank you. All right, Glenn, you have the floor.
Yeah, this application is to make a lot line adjustment. We have about, I think it's about 33 acres, and I don't have it in front of me to look at, but that is divided into a 5-acre lot and a 28-acre lot. And what we want to do is adjust the lot lines so they're more closer to equal. We'll end up with a 20 and a 12, I think. So it's a lot line adjustment. We don't expect any one of the lots is improved with a house, the other one has been approved by the planning board before. We're utilizing the same septic area, in the house, so it's merely taking, I wish I had more brighter colors, but it's on a private road. The 5-acre lot is immediately, not immediately, it's a little ways in from the private road from East Mountain Road North on the left side. It's 5 acres, it's relatively rectangular. The back lot, it takes up pretty much the whole piece of property. And so we want to adjust the line so they're both equal and both conforming to the 10-acre zoning in the area. And that's my whole story. I wish you could see it better.
That's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna do it. Okay, Ron, you want to give us a summary?
Sure. As the applicant indicates, it's a lot line adjustment. Given the size of the parcel to be transferred, it's deemed a subdivision pursuant to Chapter 112 of the town's land development regs. The only other significant item of note is relative to environmental mapping. There's a New York State wetlands that's on the property. There's also more localized wetlands that's controlled by or monitored by the Town Conservation Board. None of the wetlands are being impacted by the proposed lot line adjustment. A short form EAF has been filed. However, lot line adjustments pursuant to the current seeker regulations are represented as type 2 actions that are deemed not to have a significant environmental impact, so you can move tonight to simply declare it type 2 action and move forward. There's some referrals that are required for the project. In summary for tonight, you should classify it as a minor subdivision. Classify the project as a type 2 seeker action. You could make referrals to outside agencies to move the project along. And then you should determine whether there's going to be a site walk to evaluate the intent of the project. That's not always done for lot line adjustments, but you should make that determination tonight. And since it's deemed a subdivision, you're going to be required to conduct a public hearing on the matter.
Okay, Fire Conservation Board, what else?
Putnam County Department of Planning.
Okay, all right. Do we need to declare this a minor, or is it by definition a minor?
Well, you should formally declare it. That just formally allows them to move to final plat stage.
Okay. All right,
Simplifies the
Steve-
process.
Steve, you want to add anything?
No, this is a pretty straightforward application. I'm sure the board's looked at the hard copy plans, and if you look in the left-hand side of it, there's diagrams which really lay out exactly what the change in property is going to be. As Ron pointed out, there are a few referrals and technical issues you're going to have to work on in regard to this. But at bottom, it's a lot line change, shifting a fair amount of acreage from one lot to the other. But, you know, it's two lots at the end of the day. They're both buildable.
Understand. Board members, questions on the project?
That's a question. I mean, usually we just lot line.
Mike.
Oh, sorry. Usually, like, lot line adjustments just go through if there's no sense that there might be a reason for it that could lead to some further development. I'm just wondering, like, is this opening the second property up for development? So we,
No, they're both already approved for development as single lots. It's some
So why are we
desire,
bothering to do it?
there's some desire to balance out the acreage more.
For dissent?
For tax
like-
reasons, for
Huh?
sales reasons, for any number of reasons.
I mean, I don't know. I guess, I just wonder why.
Well, could you provide Gwen a little more, could you scratch her itch a little bit on the why?
I mean, there must be a gazillion of these things existing out here where there's no lot line adjustment that comes before us.
Well, the story is that this man, David Kaiser, bought the property and built a house up in the back, and then got sick and died. Rosemary Corbett is his widow. She wants to be able to sell one of these lots and doesn't, and as far as I can tell, is just not interested in having or both of the lots maybe. I'm not certain of that, but she's not interested in she wants to maximize her sale, and she's found it difficult in being able to sell a 28-acre lot as opposed, and wants to reduce it. So we're taking advantage of the same location for the septic system, on the one lot that's vacant. And that's gonna be the same location of the septic system on the lot that's vacant, and then the other lot's already improved with a house. So we're just trying to balance it out, that's all.
Does it scratch the itch?
I guess so.
All right, other board members' questions? No? Okay, all right, let's declare this, kind of motion to declare it a minor project, please.
Make that motion.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second.
discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Do we need, we always go through this with the declaring the type 2. Do we need a motion on that, or just it simply is one?
Well, it simply is one, but it always is good to declare it. That way it shows anybody looking at the record that you actually considered secret, and,
Fine.
you know,
Thank you.
complied with its terms.
Okay, for the, under secret, we'd like to declare this matter a type 2 action. Can I have that motion, please?
Make that motion.
Thank you, Peter. Second. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So declared. Okay, referral to the fire department, motion. Joe, second. Peter.
Yes.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Conservation. Joe, thank you for the motion. Peter, second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Motion passes. Finally, referral to planning. Motion. Heidi, second. Peter.
The planning board?
No, county planning. You're the planning board.
I was gonna say.
You just got a hat. Look at your hat next time. Okay. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention. Okay. Site visit. Thoughts on a site visit? We need to have unanimous vote for a site visit. Does anyone want to do a site visit? I'm guessing Heidi wants to.
Oh, I always want to do it.
I know. Well, anyone
Okay,
want to
no
make a
one else.
motion for a site visit? Yeah, I tend to agree with that
Okay.
sentiment. So
Yeah.
no motion?
Okay.
Okay, will be no site visit. Public hearing? Is it too soon to do January? Steve?
I think you only have Hudson Highland Reserve coming back for January. I don't see why you couldn't.
I just meant there's no other, we don't have to wait for anything else. There's no other.
No, this is a straight, this is.
Fine. So can I have a motion for, to schedule the public hearing for the January board meeting? Thank you, Peter. Second, Heidi. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention. Cheryl, you have the burden of the work to notice it. That's that. Thank you. Okay. Next and final for the night, Philipstown Depot Backstage. Margaret, are you taking us through that? Thank you.
Instead of using the screen.
Yeah, let's not use the screen.
I think we have an
The screen is both
old-fashioned board
the
here.
The screen is both illegible and difficult to, it's for TV? Okay,
Do you want to put it on?
okay.
You should put on, I think the landscaping plan, which is sheet 4 of the site plan, is the best plan to.
Go ahead and enjoy your ride on Metro North. Good night.
This is the site plan.
All right, Margaret, the floor is yours.
All right, Margaret McManus with Beatty and Watson. The Depot Theater is proposing to build the Depot Backstage, which is a building for housing their storage of their props and their costumes, and have a workshop where they can work on sets and maybe do some rehearsal, have rehearsal space. The building also will be providing public bathrooms for a proposed future use of the site, which is anticipated to be ball fields. That is not part of this proposal. The property is owned by the town of Philipstown. There would be a lease once the Depot Theater is going to build the building and dedicate it to the town and lease it back. So that's a whole process that they're going through with the town board. The property was donated by OSI, so there is also a conservation easement on the property, and there is a limited area where the building can be built, which right now is in the SPO. So that is the biggest hurdle, or maybe the biggest comment you may have, is the closeness of the building to Route 403, which is in the SPO. The green is the SPO. The building is proposed here. We've already conducted soil testing and have an area that we believe will be conductive for the septic system. We did show a proposed well, but there is actually an existing well that I thought had been abandoned but is still usable, and we will probably connect to the existing well and not have to drill a new well. And we did do a pretty extensive screening for Route 403. There are some existing trees, but they're mostly deciduous, and they don't provide any screening. We feel that those trees, which are not in great shape, would come down, and we would put up an evergreen screening along the road, so you'd have less of a visual impact of seeing the building. The property next door is the Verizon, this is the Verizon building, so it's fully fenced, and it is also close to the road. And additionally, there's a single-family home on the corner that's existing and is close to the road. So it's not uncharacteristic in this area to have a building that is close to the road.
Okay. Is that it, Margaret?
Yep, it's a very short driveway at this point. It's less than 150 feet long, so it doesn't require a turnaround. There's 6 parking spaces proposed in front of the building. There is also some banked parking shown for the future, which would be back in this area. It's not necessary to build it now, but it's shown because that was also something that was envisioned when OSI provided the property to the town, that there would be ball fields and the ball fields would need parking.
Okay, well, we see a lot of big wigs here from the Rec Commission and the Depot Theater. They want to comment on anything? You don't have to. If you want to say something. Steve, the floor is yours if you want to say something.
Thank you all very much. Steve Ives. I've been on the board at the Depot for 19 years, the chairman for about 15. Ever since I've been on the board, we've had a problem, which is the operations are just scattered all throughout the town. Our costumes are wedged into a room at the Rec. Our scenic shop is jammed into a garage at Winter Hill. Our props are in a moldy, mildew-infested set of containers outside the Rec building. And our big scenic props are at the dump. And that's been a huge handicap for the theater to try and operate efficiently. So our goal has been to try and put all of that under one roof. And we looked for places to do this in town, to renovate old buildings, to find a home for this idea, and ultimately couldn't find a place. And then this envelope of land on OSI came about. We have the good fortune of already having a well. The road that was built to create the well for the Garrison landing is material that OSI says has to be removed from the site. So John Van Tassel has said that he would like nothing better than to pick that material up and turn it around and build a parking lot and a driveway for the new building. And our neighbor Peter Daverin has already brought electric to the site for the big sweet potato dig. So there's already electric there, which is all a huge help to us. And the building, as Margaret said, would just bring all of our operations under one roof. So that's basically what we're looking to do. I should say that OSI and the conservation easement has some issues with what we're proposing. The building is slightly too high, slightly too long, and the use is not purely storage. So we are in negotiations or conversations with them about trying to align with their easement. They've made it clear that they're open to the process of amending that easement in order to kind of come up with what they consider a net neutral impact. And they want some clarification on us in terms of the amount of people that would be using the building and the amount of parking that we really would need. So we're working with them. We made a brief presentation about this to the Rec Commission. Obviously, we run Rec Commission programs through the Depot. They're very much in favor of the building. The town board has endorsed the idea and written us a letter of endorsement for the purposes of fundraising. We just think it's the absolute next step to try and sort of set the Depot on a path, a stable path for growth over the next 25 to 30 years. Happy to answer any questions.
Ron, will you give us a summary of where we are?
Sure. As the applicant indicates, the property involved is town-owned property. It has frontage on both 403 and Route 9D. Both of those frontages lie within the town's scenic protection overlay zone, so there's some regulations there that have to be addressed or understood. OSI has an easement over the property. Rec department is involved because the property was intended originally for recreational uses, and so they're anticipating some accommodation there with the rec department. Both the town board and the rec board has informally endorsed the concept of the project. The building itself is intended, obviously, for the theater, but it's having some shared use in order to provide shared bathrooms and parking for any future activities that may occur at the property. So there's some statutory things that the board wants to do initially. First, you always classify the project. Since the extent of the project is such, you should deem that a major project to just establish the type of project that it is. Relative to seeker, a full EAF has been filed. So you're going to want to initiate the environmental review. There's referrals that are necessary. Obviously, there's state roads involved, so you're going to make referral to county planning. Putnam County Highways has to approve the formality of the access into the site. And the Putnam County Health Department has to review and accept the on-site well and sanitary design. And again, as Chair had indicated, under the previous application, you typically make referral to the fire department to allow them the opportunity to comment. We have some technical issues that we've identified preliminarily, just relative to the scenic protection overlay, the conservation easement conditions that are on the property to make sure that the theater proposed fits within the building envelope, or the envelope is adjusted to satisfy the needs or desires of the depot. But that's all in progress.
Can we just talk about secret for a second? I mean, this is, as a major project, we have to declare ourselves lead agency. What's our?
First, you would just, statutorily just define it as a major project. That just qualifies how you're going to process the application. That's just a board action. The issue of seeker is a matter of just determining it to be an unlisted action and determine whether you want to have a coordinated or uncoordinated review with those outside agencies.
In this particular instance, you really want to have an uncoordinated review. There may be, for funding purposes, a need for the town board to conditionally accept an offer of dedication or conditionally enter into a lease. So you don't want to be in a situation where this board has to circulate for lead agency, wait 30 days, or wait till the next town board meeting in order to get a resolution saying that the board consents. The only difference would be the town board would adopt presumably a negative declaration, and then this board would, again, adopt presumably a negative declaration under SECRA. So you wind up with two resolutions, but it may be necessary in this particular case.
So first unlisted, then uncoordinated?
Yes.
Okay. Board members' questions on this?
And why is it, but we're gonna find that it's major, right?
We are defining as major.
Okay.
If I could say something on this, Neil, I don't want to go too far afield. Just quickly.
Yeah, go please.
So what's going on here is that the Depot Theater is an independent 501c3 not-for-profit corporation. And as such, they're not a municipal body. They're a separate corporate entity. What they want to do is offer for dedication, donation, to the town of Philipstown the labor and materials to construct the proposed building and the plans, to construct the proposed building on the town's property. If the town accepts the offer of dedication, the project, subject to completion, of course, will be a town project, a town building. The town of Philipstown does not need to get site plan approval, variances, anything along those lines. Having said all that, before the town board accepts an offer of dedication of a building, they want to be sure that the proposed construction of the building is in accordance with at least the precepts, the outlines of the town code, and that it's going to be built correctly, because once the town accepts it, if there's problems with this building, that's the town's responsibility. So what they want to have happen is to have this board treat this as though it was any other application coming before it, process it. A time may come when the town board accepts the offer of dedication, and when that happens, you won't need to grant, a grant of site plan approval from this board will no longer be legally necessary. That's not to say the town board won't want you to follow through and report to them as to what you think should be done in terms of the plans, but that's for down the road. Right now, there's no offer of dedication. Right now, there's an application and plans in front of you, and you should proceed, like I said, as though it was any other application for now.
Very helpful. Questions?
So, I just want to make one point.
Come to the mic then, please.
What?
Come to the mic, please.
Claudio Marzolo, I'm a member of the Depot Theater Board and the Recreation Commission. I just want to make a point that it's not completely independent, the Depot Theater, because the board, the board is appointed by the town board. So the town board has basic.
By the bylaws of the Depot Theater for 501c3?
Yes.
Interesting.
And there are, the board, 1/3 of the members of the board is appointed for 3 years on alternating things. I just want to make that point.
That's helpful.
It's not really totally independent.
Okay, helpful. All right, board members' questions.
Well, I mean, I think it would be really great to have a public hearing about this. That's a very rural corner of our town, and I think
Well, I think we're gonna have to have it. It's a
Yeah,
major-
okay.
It's
That's
not in
great.
dispute.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Okay.
Very good.
All right, you get a question? Questions?
Just by looking at the plans, my only concern is just the access here. You know, when you drive down Cat Rock Road, there's that sharp S-turn with a steep incline coming down to the light. And I'm not sure how much traffic's going to be generated from this property and whether that would be an issue. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see it as a high traffic building in that the scenic shop is operating at periods where we have shows going on, but it's not a full-time operation. We do hope to have kind of an educational program with apprentices learning backstage theater arts in the property, but we don't see that as also being a particularly high volume. I suppose once a year, if we do a rehearsal for a show like The Full Monty, you could have a fairly large group of people in for a few nights. One of the advantages of the rehearsal space for us is that by being able to rehearse in a different building, we free up as many as 5 weekends a year at the Depot, which we can use to do other programming and generate revenue. So, but it's not a place where there's full-time activity. It's very much kind of programmatic in nature.
Okay, thanks.
Peter?
No.
No question? I have one related to the conservation easement. Is it premature to be processing this application when there may be changes to the project based upon the conservation easement negotiation?
Well, you're at the very, very preliminary stage, and it's not uncommon for someone to present plans to you and then later on say, gee, I need to shift the building because of, I don't know, wetlands or steep slopes or what have you. This building may go through that. I know they don't want it, but it may go through some changes before it's ready for approval/acceptance. I don't see any problem with taking the preliminary stages, making the referrals, and maybe, if you're interested, scheduling a site visit.
Yeah, I mean, if the height of the building is a major piece, which is not a big piece to prove out in a site visit, I'd prefer to wait till doing the public hearing until you get more clarity on what you're changing. Because if you're gonna change it significantly, and I guess you're changing it for the reduction, not an expansion of usage.
It's all about reducing it. I mean, I think we're talking 4 feet in the height
Okay.
and 15 feet in the length. So it's just to get it inside the envelope in the easement, but it's also an issue of use. They want to know.
Well, that's sort of where I was going, which is I want to make sure we're having a public hearing on whatever the thing is going to be, not within pretty close range. Okay, that's helpful. All right, so I feel comfortable moving forward. I'm going to just go through the usual administrivia for this group. So can I have a motion to declare a major project, please?
Moved.
Thank you. Second, Heidi. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. 2 secret motions. One, can I have a motion to declare an unlisted action?
I made that motion.
Thank you, Joe. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, abstention, motion passes. And we're gonna declare an uncoordinated review. Peter, thank you. Joe, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, abstention, motion passes. Referrals, let's make, 4. First to, county planning. Heidi, second. Joe, all in favor, say aye. Aye, motion passes. Referral to county, we had the highway, right? Yeah, the highway department, okay, motion, Peter, second, Joe, any discussion, all in favor say aye, aye, motion passes. County health, may I have a motion, please? Heidi, thank you, Peter, second, all in favor say aye, aye, motion passes. Finally, referral to the fire department, we gotta be able to do this as a package deal. I'm on other boards, we do this as a package deal. I'm just telling you, the MTA, we do these things as a package. This is ridiculous. But anyway, if everyone loves the theater of this, there you go. Peter, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Did I miss any referrals? Got them all.
I just want to clarify, Ron, that it's a state highway, but the county is the,
I'm sorry, I did misspeak. I thought it was county.
403
But
is
you're
a
right,
state
it's,
road.
it is
All
a
right,
state
so
road.
DOT then?
That'd be state.
All right, we will
Thank you.
let's amend that resolution, that referral. Can I have a motion to amend the resolution or the referral to the county? Sorry, I'm getting very tired. Motion to, thank you very much. Second, thank you, Joe. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed. Thank you, Margaret, for being attentive to detail. Let's schedule a site visit. The 5th?
Yeah, KPV, you're gonna.
You have one on the 5th already.
Great, you guys can go do that too. Anyone have a motion to approve a site visit for these guys? Are you guys available?
Yes.
No, I mean these guys, I'm looking at the applicant. Yeah,
Yeah.
5th is good. Okay, board members, motion? Yes, 10:30. I mean, I hope you will. Mario, you know we like it staked out and.
Can you get that done?
Sorry, what's on that?
10:30,
On what day?
the 5th of January.
And Margaret promises to show up.
I won't be late. Center line of road in the corners of the building.
Yeah, that's fine. And I guess as we typically ask if there's any major trees you're taking out, just to identify those.
They're all along the front. so.
Okay. All right, we had a motion, a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions, site visit is scheduled January 5th, 10:30. It will be duly noticed, and wear your hats, damn it. All right, any new business for the board? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. Thank you. All right, all have a great Christmas, New Year's.